Christian, your thoughts?
Well, I was struck by John Bolton standing at the door as you saw President Trump exit. Look, this is the regime change crew. They're back in town, they're ascendant, and it sounds very much like that is what President Trump is hoping for, that they can squeeze and squeeze and squeeze until the regime he described collapse. They've tried it many, many, many decades, and it hasn't actually worked. I think also he said things like, you know, we will not allow American cities to be threatened. Well, that's not Iran's missile program. That's actually North Korea's missile program that can reach the United States. And he said things like, we're united with our allies. Well, that is clearly not the case around this deal. Of course, everybody would rather see a better, bigger and more comprehensive deal. But the allies had ideas of trying to do add-ons or the like. It was never going to be possible at the time that they negotiated that deal. And finally, I think, to the questions by the reporters that were hurled at the president as he went out, how does this make America safer? It is incredibly difficult to try to fathom that sitting from here. All those things that he laid out about the danger of Iran, about its regional ambitions, about supporting terrorism and the like. How does pulling out of one deal that constrains, and it does, no matter what the president says, the deal constrains Iran's nuclear program. So how does pulling out of it make you safe while you're trying to deal with all the other things when you have no plan B? It's very important also to remember that it was George W. Bush, along with his regime change crew, that decided to ditch the Clinton administration's deal with North Korea in the early 2000s. What did that do? They pulled out of the NPT, they kicked out the IAEA inspectors, and now they are conducting nuclear blackmail because they actually do have nuclear weapons and intercontinental ballistic missiles. That is a possibility going forward. That is what the president has opened the door to. Now, whether Iran decides to stay in the deal, whether the Europeans can make it work, we'll see. But that is the worst case scenario that, you know, it's back to military confrontation. How else do you work this out?
Yeah, the president warning the Iranians if they were to take those steps and begin that nuclear program, engage in ballistic missiles, they will suffer like few nations have suffered in the past. He made that direct threat to the Iranians. Christian, what do you think the so-called hardliners, the Revolutionary Guard, among others in Iran, are going to do now that the president has said the United States is withdrawing from this agreement?
Well, I did actually interview Iran's ambassador to Britain, and he laid out a very clear scenario, which was that this would empower the hardliners, that the moderates, whatever you might think of the relative moderates or hardliners, there are different political streams in Iran, and it was the moderates who managed to overcome great skepticism and challenge from the hardliners to actually engage with the United States in the first place. So they are going to be undermined and diminished, and it's possible because the hardliners are, you know, getting stronger and the Revolutionary Guard are getting stronger outside and inside Iran, that they will want to withdraw from the whole NPT. I mean, forget the deal, just get out of the whole NPT as well, which would put you in a North Korea circa 2001-2002 situation where there was no eyes on, there were no constraints, no restrictions. And as I previously described, North Korea is where it is today because of precisely the same kind of hardball negotiating tactics that a US president thought would be a success. And it wasn't. And I would simply also just point out, because, you know, President Trump himself mentioned Prime Minister Netanyahu. Let's not forget that when it was former Prime Minister Netanyahu in 2002 who went to Congress and told them the following: if you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have an enormous positive reverberation on the whole region. And I think people sitting right next door in Iran, young people and many others, will say the time of such regimes, of such despots, it's gone. So, you know, how did that work out? Exactly the reverse. And so we really do actually have to be careful about what's just happened, because without a plan B, if there was a plan B, then all of this would be academic and we could think about what was on the menu, what was on the table going forward. But there isn't a plan B. So that's what I, as a journalist, am very keen to find out from the United States administration.
Hold on one second. We're getting reaction from the Israeli Prime Minister. In fact, Christian, among others, Prime Minister Netanyahu says Israel fully supports President Trump's announcement to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. Not a surprise. He was speaking on live television in Israel immediately following the president's address. We're also getting reaction from the French President Emmanuel Macron. He just tweeted that President Trump's decision to leave the Iran deal, he says France, Germany, and the UK This, according to Macron, regret the U.S. decision to leave the agreement. The nuclear nonproliferation regime is at stake.